this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Biker Scout for the Black Series 3 and 3/4 inch line. This was figure number 7 in the black and orange packaging, so this was one of the very first action figures in the Black Series line at the time. It's a really good action figure. There's really not a whole lot to say about it. I've kind of featured this on the channel before, mainly with the speeder bike that was recently released. Actually, this guy here, he's kind of a slight retool of that. And then, of course, one of the very first action figures I reviewed on the channel is basically just a direct repack of that with some extra accessories and a slight repaint. And this guy is actually not a brand new action figure himself. He's actually just a slight retool and a slight repaint of the 2012 speeder bike that was released, I think, during the Movie Heroes line. I think that's the speeder bike that has a little bit of a shorter stand with it. Previous version to this one. So it's essentially just a repack of the Biker Scout, but it's a really good one. And I've had this in my collection since 2013. I actually got him on Christmas Day in 13. So he was one of the very first Black Series action figures I got. It was during the time they were first getting released. I think he was a moderate seller. He wasn't one that moved extremely quick, but he certainly didn't peg warm for long periods of time. I don't think collectors are really too bothered by having a bunch of releases of Biker Scouts every now and then, or Scout Troopers. Sometimes they go back and forth on the names. I know this one was labeled as a Scout Trooper, I think, and then this one was the Biker Scout. He's not quite as painted as he should be. As you can see here on the shoulders, he still has the black pins there. And I think he's missing some paint on his belt as well. And they did correct that on like these ones, for example. And I did read something about that. Apparently Hasbro said something to do with tooling costs and something with the manufacturer. It was either get the action figure out on time and it's missing a little bit of paint in some needed areas, or it was going to be delayed just to get the paint right. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Personally, I kind of like it where it has the black hinges there because it's just one way to distinguish the Biker Scout, but I can understand why some people don't really like that. Of course, you could always paint it yourself. It shouldn't be that big of a fix, but trying to get that white paint to match can be quite tricky. So what else can I say about this? I think that's pretty much it, so we'll just go ahead and take a closer look at them. So this was the third Biker Scout I got in my collection at the time. First one was in the Vintage Saga line back in 2006. Unfortunately, that figure for me has completely yellowed out, mainly in the torso area. I will review that one at some point. I also got the repack of that action figure in the Legacy collection, so this was the next one after that. Scout Troopers have always been a big part of my collection. I've been pretty much buying them since the beginning. At this point, I pretty much have like a dozen of these guys. This is the only one I got of the Black Series figure. So the sculpt is pretty good. Like I said, it is allegedly a slight retool. The one that came with the speeder bike in 2012 allegedly had a slightly wider stance, and this one kind of narrowed that gap a little bit. Other than that, it's just a direct repaint. So the helmet looks really good. I think the proportions are just about right on it. And I think the paint's all right on it. The body itself looks pretty good. I think mine has a little bit of a lean to it, like he's got scoliosis or something like that. I think that was just the way the figure was manufactured for me. And you can see he's got a little bit of that lean to him. It wasn't something I could ever straighten out, but it's not that big of a deal. As the pouches sculpted there, you can barely even tell it's pouches though. sculpting work in the arms. I think the arms are pretty much just a straight retool from the saga, the vintage saga action figure. There's the belt here, which the belt is it's all totally white here. Well, you can see on these ones, they do have a little bit of that tan on them. Same with that one. So it is missing a little bit of paint. Not that big of a deal though. He has his legs. And the holster sculpted into the boot, which does house his pistol just fine. In terms of articulation, at the time this was some pretty impressive articulation actually. So I think his head is on a barbell there, which this was one of the very first Hasbro Star Wars action figures to actually feature this. So at the time it was a really big deal. Of course now it doesn't seem like it's much, but I do recall a lot of people going crazy for this. And look at that! I really wish a lot more action figures had this. I'm very impressed with the mobility in that neck there. Get a lot of great poses out of it. Look pretty much all the way down, almost all the way up. He does have hinge at the shoulders. That unfortunately, the right arm for this guy is a little loose. I can't really get him to hold like that sometimes, and then it just wants to go back into place. He does have a joint. Of course, he has the hinged elbows and then swivel forearms, not so much wrists. Joint at the torso. He does have hinged hips to accommodate the speeder bike. And he does have hinged knees and hinged ankles. So pretty good articulation for this guy. Some innovative articulation at the time. In terms of accessories, he's extremely light. He just comes with one blaster pistol. Nothing unique about that at all. I already showed you what it's like in the holster. But he does hold it pretty good. You get some nice poses out of that. You can always give him a rifle or some other accessories if you have those on hand. Firing his pistol down the line. You can make a pretty good pose for that. Very convincing pose. One other thing I did want to try before wrapping up the video is I did want to see how he fits specifically on the speeder bike. I think I kind of alluded to this last time when I actually did the review for the speeder bike. I like to kind of do a proper one for him this time. Since he has those hinged hips, I think it will be much more doable. Yes, he fits really good on there. His feet aren't quite as flush with the foot pads there as this one, but it is good enough. I'm pretty convinced by that. So if you have some spare speeder bikes lying around, this guy will definitely accommodate. And thankfully he has those hinged hips to make him fit. At some point I will try it with the Saga figure as well, although that one has the swivel hips, so it might not work as well. But anyways, I think that's pretty much all I can tell you about the Biker Scout here. So would I recommend him for your collection? If you find him and you're a big fan of Biker Scouts, I think you're not making a bad decision by going ahead and getting this guy. Even though we got the updated ones here, and even this one, I still think he's got his own charm to him. I still think he holds up all these years later. He's like what, I don't know, basically 12-year-old mold at this point. And he does have some reused parts from almost 20 years ago. And a lot of those parts still hold up very nicely today. So if you do find them, I would recommend getting him if you're interested. I don't think the prices for him are too bad. Last I checked on eBay, I think they're usually in like the $20 range. So not too bad, even if you get him brand new. It's a nice action figure overall. It's been in my collection for over 10 years now, and I proudly display them on my shelf, along with the rest of my Scout Troopers. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more in the future. There will always be more to come. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate all your support. And check out some of the links in the description if you have not done so already. And as always, thanks for watching.